Winter had descended upon Evermore, blanketing the kingdom in a serene, icy grip. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. A hard-won peace had settled over the land. The townsfolk, once gripped by fear, now went about their days with a renewed sense of hope. Laughter echoed through the cobblestone streets, and the warmth of hearth fires filled the homes of Evermore. The first whispers of trouble began subtly, like a serpent slithering through tall grass. Strange occurrences plagued Evermore, unsettling events that defied explanation. Objects vanished without a trace, only to reappear in unexpected places. A new threat was emerging from the shadows, a malevolent force seeking chaos. His suspicions were confirmed with the arrival of 3 enigmatic figures. Damon, a master manipulator with a silver tongue and a heart filled with ambition, followed close on Mela's heels. He was a master of disguise, able to blend seamlessly into any crowd, sowing seeds of discord and turning neighbor against neighbor with his poisonous whispers. His arrival in Evermore marked a turning point, a descent from the fragile peace that had been so painstakingly achieved. The last of the trio, Cal, was an enigma shrouded in shadow. Little was known about him, save for the chilling rumors that followed him like a shroud. Some whispered that he was a powerful demonologist, able to summon forth creatures of darkness from the abyss. Others claimed he was a harbinger of death, his very presence a curse upon the land. The truth Damon knew was likely far more terrifying than any rumor. With the arrival of Mela, Demos, and Cal, the disturbances in Evermore intensified. Memories became fluid, shifting and changing like the winter wind. People forgot familiar faces, their minds clouded by an unseen force, relationships frayed, torn apart by suspicion and mistrust. Damon watched as the town he had sworn to protect began to unravel, its vibrant tapestry of life slowly fading under a pall of fear and uncertainty. The disappearance of Tamis and Saga, 2 enigmatic Nordic witches who had become integral members of the Evermore community, struck a particularly deep chord within Damon. Tamis, with her quiet wisdom and gentle touch, had become a trusted confidant, her insights often guiding Damon's path. Saga, her vibrant spirit and infectious laughter a beacon of joy, had brought a unique warmth to Evermore, her presence a constant reminder of the simple pleasures in life. Their sudden absence left a gaping hole in the heart of Evermore, a void that seemed to amplify the growing sense of unease. Damon felt their loss keenly, a deep pang of sadness mingling with a growing sense of dread. He knew with an unsettling certainty that their disappearance was no mere coincidence. It was a thread, he realized, a vital clue in the unraveling mystery that threatened to consume Evermore. Damon stood before the empty leather tent. It had been Tamis and Saga's dwelling, a place of warmth and laughter, filled with the aroma of exotic herbs and the soft glow of candlelight. Now it was eerily silent. The flap hung limply open like a vacant eye staring out at the world. He stepped inside, his boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of sandalwood and lavender, a bittersweet reminder of the sisters' presence. A wave of sadness washed over him, followed by a surge of resolve. He would find them. He had to. Damon carefully examined the tent's interior. Everything seemed to be in order. Their belongings were neatly arranged, their beds made. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. He ran his fingers over a smooth, polished stone resting on a small table. It was a scrying stone used by the sisters for divination. Perhaps it held a clue, a whisper of their whereabouts. Leaving the tent, Damon made his way through the town, his senses alert. Evermore felt different. The usual bustle had been replaced by an unsettling quiet. The townsfolk he passed seemed distant, their faces etched with worry. He stopped at the Golden Barrel Inn, hoping to glean some information. The inn was unusually subdued. The usual boisterous laughter was absent, replaced by hushed conversations and furtive glances. He found Barnabas and Damien huddled in a corner, their faces grim.
Any news?
Barnabas shook his head.
Nothing concrete. Rumors are flying, but no one seems to know anything for sure.
Some say they saw Tamis and Saga leaving town just before the first snow. Others say they were taken, spirited away in the night.
Damon listened intently, his mind racing. He needed to separate fact from fiction to find a tangible lead. He thanked the knights and stepped back out into the cold, his breath misting in the air. The wind seemed to whisper around him, carrying with it the faintest hint of magic, of something ancient and powerful. Damon decided to seek out Anya, the town seer. Anya was a reclusive woman, but her visions were said to be uncannily accurate. Her small cottage was nestled at the edge of the forest, half hidden among the trees. Smoke curled from its chimney, a welcoming sign in the biting cold. Anya greeted Damon at the door, her face lined with age and wisdom. Her eyes, though clouded with time, still held a spark of ancient power.
You seek answers, Mage Damon. Answers that are shrouded in mist and shadow.
Damon nodded, his gaze unwavering.
Tamis and Saga are gone. I need to know where they are. What has become of them?
Anya led him inside, her movements slow but deliberate. The cottage was small and cluttered, filled with herbs, crystals, and strange artifacts. She gestured for him to sit by the fire while she prepared a special tea. As Damon sipped the hot tea, its warmth spreading through him, Anya spoke.
I have seen visions, Mage Damon, she said, her voice low and steady. Visions of Tamis and Saga, trapped in a place where magic is thin and the air hangs heavy with despair.
This place, she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, is called the Forgotten Grove. It is a place of ancient power, ruled by forces both beautiful and terrible. Damon listened intently, committing every word to memory.
The grove, Anya said, her gaze piercing, is not easily found. It exists on the edge of reality, accessible only through forgotten paths and hidden gateways.
Damon felt a surge of determination. He would find this grove, he would brave its dangers and rescue Tamis and Saga.
Tell me everything, Damon said, his voice firm. Tell me everything you know.
Anya nodded, a knowing look in her eyes. And so as the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, Anya revealed the secrets of the Forgotten Grove, sharing ancient lore and whispered prophecies that would guide Damon on his perilous journey. Armed with Anya's knowledge and a heart filled with both dread and determination, Damon set out into the deepening twilight. The Forgotten Grove, she had said, lay hidden within the heart of the Whisperwood, a vast and ancient forest bordering Evermore. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place of untamed magic and forgotten lore. As Damon ventured deeper into the Whisperwood, the trees seemed to close in around him. Their branches, gnarled and ancient, intertwined overhead, blocking out the last rays of the setting sun. The air grew colder, heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Strange sounds echoed through the woods, the rustling of unseen creatures, the distant cry of a wolf. Damon pressed on, his senses alert, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He followed Anya's instructions carefully, navigating by the position of the stars and the flow of a hidden stream. The path, if it could be called that, was treacherous, winding through dense undergrowth and over moss-covered rocks. Just when Damon began to doubt Anya's words, he stumbled upon a clearing. The trees thinned, revealing a small, moss-covered grove bathed in an ethereal light. In the center of the grove stood an ancient oak, its branches reaching towards the heavens like gnarled fingers. A faint, shimmering mist swirled around its base, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Damon approached the oak cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. As he drew closer, he noticed a faint inscription carved into its bark. The inscription was in a language he didn't recognize, but he could feel its power resonating deep within him. He reached out a hand, his fingers tracing the strange symbols. As he did so, the mist around the tree began to swirl faster, the ethereal light intensifying. A sense of anticipation, of both wonder and dread, washed over him. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that he had found the gateway to the Forgotten Grove. Damon hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the glowing inscription. He could feel the power emanating from the oak, a raw, primal energy that both beckoned and repelled him. Taking a deep breath, he pressed his hand against the cold, rough bark. The inscription flared to life, bathing the clearing in a blinding white light. Damon shielded his eyes, his body tingling with a strange energy. When the light subsided, he found himself standing in a different place. The clearing had vanished, replaced by a dense, primeval forest. The air was heavy and still, thick with the smell of decay and the faint scent of something ancient and alien. The trees, their trunks thick and twisted, seemed to press in on him, their branches forming a dense canopy overhead, blocking out the sky. A sense of unease settled over Damon, a primal fear that tugged at the edges of his composure. This was a place of ancient power, a place untouched by time, where the laws of nature seemed to bend and twist. Damon drew his sword, the familiar weight of the weapon a comfort in this strange and unsettling place. He took a tentative step forward, his senses on high alert. The forest floor was soft and spongy beneath his feet, carpeted in a thick layer of decaying leaves and moss. Strange plants, their leaves shimmering with iridescent hues, grew in profusion, their tendrils reaching out like grasping hands. Damon moved cautiously through the undergrowth, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the trees and the rustle of leaves beneath his feet. It was as if the forest itself were holding its breath, watching his every move. As he ventured deeper into the grove, Damon noticed a strange distortion in the air, a subtle bending of light that made it difficult to judge distances. Paths seemed to appear and disappear before his eyes, and familiar landmarks shifted and changed as he approached them. The wind picked up, swirling around him, carrying with it the faintest whisper of voices. Damon strained to listen, his heart pounding in his chest. The voices were soft, ethereal, like whispers on the wind, but he could have sworn he heard his name being called. He stopped, holding his breath, listening intently. The voices grew louder, swirling around him, a chorus of whispers that seemed to emanate from the trees themselves. They spoke of forgotten times, of ancient pacts, of a power that slumbered beneath the earth. Damon felt a chill run down his spine. These were not the voices of the living. He resumed his journey, his pace quickening, his senses on high alert. The further he ventured into the grove, the stronger the whispers became, until they were all he could hear. They seemed to be trying to tell him something, to warn him of some unseen danger, but their words were cryptic, their meaning elusive. Section 4. The Guardian's Gaze. Damon emerged from a thicket of trees and found himself facing a wide, shallow pool of water. The surface of the pool was perfectly still, reflecting the twisted branches of the trees overhead like a dark, shimmering mirror. And in the center of the pool, rising from the depths like a phantom, was a single, enormous eye. The eye was cold and ancient, its iris a deep, unsettling shade of green. It blinked slowly, its gaze fixed on Damon, seeming to pierce through him, reading his thoughts, judging his worth. Damon froze, his breath catching in his throat. He had stumbled upon something ancient and powerful, a being of pure magic guarding the heart of the forgotten grove. He could feel the being's power washing over him, testing him, probing his defenses. His every instinct screamed at him to turn and flee, to escape this place while he still could. But something held him rooted to the spot, a strange compulsion to face this ancient guardian, to prove himself worthy of its attention. Section 5. A test of will. The eye narrowed, and Damon felt a surge of fear course through him. The air around him crackled with energy, and the water in the pool began to churn.
"Who dares to trespass in my domain?" the voice boomed, its tone both accusatory and curious.
"I mean no disrespect, Great One," Damon said, his voice trembling slightly. "I have come seeking knowledge, seeking to rescue those who have been taken."
"Knowledge is a dangerous thing, mortal," the voice rumbled, "and those who seek it often find more than they bargained for."
Damon took a step back, his hand tightening on his sword hilt. He knew he could not defeat this creature in combat. His only hope lay in reason, in appealing to its wisdom. The eye blinked slowly, its gaze unwavering. Damon stood his ground, ready to face the challenge. Section 6, the path revealed.
I'm willing to pay the price, Damon said, his voice firming with resolve. I must find my friends. Tell me what I need to do.
The path you seek is not easily found, the voice said, its tone softening slightly. But it is there, hidden in plain sight. Look for the signs, mortal. The signs will guide you.
As the eye spoke, a faint shimmering appeared in the air, coalescing into a swirling vortex of light. The vortex pulsed and hummed with energy, beckoning Damon forward. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that this was the path he sought, the way to find Tamis and Saga. Taking a deep breath, he stepped towards the vortex, ready to face whatever lay beyond. The eye watched him, its gaze unwavering. Damon felt a surge of determination. He stepped into the vortex, his resolve unshaken. Damon stepped into the vortex of light, his senses reeling. The world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. He felt a strange sense of weightlessness, as if he were floating through a void where the laws of physics no longer applied. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the swirling stopped. Damon found himself standing on a narrow path, the forest around him dark and menacing. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, but there was something else too, a faint underlying sweetness that he couldn't quite place. The path was barely visible beneath a carpet of fallen leaves, winding its way through the trees like a serpent. Damon drew his sword, his senses on high alert. He had no idea where he was going or what dangers might lie ahead, but he knew he couldn't turn back. He moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. As he journeyed deeper into the grove, Damon began to notice strange things. Whispers seemed to emanate from the trees, fragments of conversation, snatches of laughter, and the mournful strains of a long-forgotten melody. He caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of his eye, shadows flitting through the trees, but whenever he turned to face them, they were gone. The air grew colder, and a light mist began to gather around his feet, swirling and dancing like phantoms. Damon shivered, pulling his cloak tighter around him. He had the unsettling feeling that he was being watched, not just by unseen eyes, but by the forest itself. The trees seemed to lean in towards him, their branches swaying gently as if whispering secrets to one another. He quickened his pace, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the grove. The path opened up into a small clearing bathed in an eerie green light. In the center stood a weathered stone archway, its surface covered in intricate carvings. The carvings seemed to writhe and shift before Damon's eyes, depicting strange creatures and arcane symbols that he couldn't decipher. Damon hesitated, sensing that he stood at a crossroads, a place where the veil between worlds was thin and choices carried great weight. He could feel the pull of the archway beckoning him forward, promising answers to the questions that had brought him to this strange and unsettling place. He drew his sword, his hand tightening on the hilt. He would proceed with caution, his senses alert for any sign of threat. This place felt different, charged with a primal energy that spoke of ancient pacts and forgotten powers. As Damon approached the archway, he noticed a figure standing beneath it, shrouded in shadow. The figure was tall and slender, its features obscured by a dark hood. It raised a hand, beckoning Damon closer.
Welcome, Mage Damon. You have come seeking knowledge, and knowledge you shall find. But be warned, the price of such knowledge is often dear.
Who are you, and what do you know of my quest?
I am known as the Whisperer, and I know much, for these woods whisper their secrets to me. I know of your search for the Nordic witches, and I can help you find them. But first, you must prove yourself worthy.
Prove myself? How?
Beyond this archway lies a place of power, a place where your courage and resolve will be tested.
Damon hesitated, his hand still resting on his sword hilt. He couldn't tell if the figure was a friend or foe, but he sensed no immediate threat. The Whisperer gestured towards the archway, its surface shimmering with an eerie light. Damon steeled himself, ready to face the challenge. Damon studied the archway, his gaze drawn to the swirling vortex of energy at its center. He could feel its power calling to him, promising answers to the questions that had plagued him for so long.
What lies beyond this archway? And what would you have me do?
Beyond this archway lies the heart of the Forgotten Grove, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, and the echoes of the past dance with the shadows of the present. There, you will face your fears, confront your doubts, and emerge transformed.
Damon hesitated, weighing his options. He'd come too far to turn back now, but the thought of venturing into the unknown, of facing whatever lay beyond that archway, filled him with a sense of foreboding. He knew that the Whisperer was offering him a choice, a bargain with potentially dire consequences. Damon took a deep breath, his resolve firming. He stepped towards the archway, ready to face whatever lay beyond. Damon asked, his gaze fixed on the Whisperer.
And what is the price of this knowledge? What must I offer in return for your guidance?
The price of knowledge is never cheap, Mage Damon, but in your case, it is a small one. I ask only for a story, a tale from your past, a memory that you hold dear.
A story? What good is a story to you?
Stories hold power, Mage Damon. They shape our perceptions, influence our beliefs, and bind us to the past. Your story will serve as payment for my guidance, a token of our bargain.
Damon hesitated, weighing his options. He was wary of revealing too much to this enigmatic being, but he couldn't deny the allure of the Whisperer's offer.
Very well. I accept your bargain. I will share a story, a memory, in exchange for your guidance. The Whisperer nodded slowly, its shadowed hood dipping in acknowledgement.
Wisely chosen, Mage Damon. Now, step into the archway, and let the grove reveal its secrets to you.
Steeling himself, Damon strode towards the archway, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. A leap of faith. Damon hesitated for a moment longer, his gaze flickering between the swirling vortex of the archway and the enigmatic figure of the Whisperer. Trusting this being, this embodiment of shadows and whispers, felt inherently dangerous, yet a flicker of hope fueled by desperation urged him forward. What was one story, one memory, compared to the potential of finding Tamis and Saga? Could he afford to turn away from any possibility, however perilous, that might lead him to them? With a deep breath, Damon made his choice.
Very well. I accept your bargain. I will share a story, a memory, in exchange for your guidance. The Whisperer nodded slowly, its shadowed hood dipping in acknowledgement.
Wisely chosen, Mage Damon. Now, step into the archway, and let the grove reveal its secrets to you.
Steeling himself, Damon strode towards the archway, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. As he drew closer, the vortex of energy intensified, bathing the clearing in an otherworldly glow. Taking a deep breath, Damon stepped into the vortex. The world dissolved around him in a rush of colors and sensations. He felt a strange sense of weightlessness, as if he were falling through time and space, the boundaries of reality dissolving around him. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the sensation ceased. Damon found himself standing in a circular chamber, the air thick with the scent of ancient magic, and something else, something familiar yet unsettlingly out of reach. The chamber was dimly lit by glowing runes etched into the smooth stone walls. In the center of the chamber stood a well, its rim crafted from dark, polished obsidian. The well seemed to draw Damon's gaze, its depths promising forgotten knowledge and buried secrets. Damon reached out a hand, his fingers hovering just above the surface of the water. As he did so, the scenes in the well intensified, becoming clearer, more vivid. He saw himself as a young boy, his eyes bright with wonder, practicing his first clumsy spells under the watchful gaze of his mentor. He saw himself as a young man, filled with ambition and idealism, setting out into the world to make his mark. And he saw himself as he was now, weary and world-weary, his heart heavy with the weight of responsibility and loss. The Whisperer's words echoed in his mind.
Stories hold power, Mage Damon. They shape our perceptions, influence our beliefs, and bind us to the past.
Was this the Whisperer's game? To force him to confront the shadows of his past, to relive his mistakes and regrets? The vortex expanded, swirling outwards from the well and engulfing the chamber in a maelstrom of light and sound. Damon shielded his eyes, bracing himself against the onslaught of sensations. When he dared to look again, the chamber had transformed. He was no longer standing in a confined space, but in a vast, cavernous grove. Towering trees, their trunks thicker than any he had ever seen, reached up towards a sky ablaze with stars. The air hummed with an ancient energy, a palpable sense of power that sent shivers down his spine. And in the center of the grove, nestled amongst the roots of a colossal oak, was a small, flickering light. Damon felt an irresistible pull towards the light, a sense that it held the key to his quest, the answer to the riddle of Tamis and Saga's disappearance. The crystal pulsed with a soft, warm light, casting flickering shadows that danced across the surrounding trees. Damon approached cautiously, his gaze drawn to the intricate patterns etched into the crystal's surface. The patterns seemed to shift and change as he watched, forming images that flickered in and out of focus. He saw glimpses of Tamis and Saga, their faces etched with worry, their movements restricted as if bound by some unseen force. And he saw another figure, tall and cloaked in shadow, its features obscured by a swirling mist. The figure radiated power, a palpable aura of darkness that sent a chill down Damon's spine. Yet the sight of the sisters, even imprisoned, ignited a spark of hope within him. They were alive. As Damon watched, the shadowed figure raised its arms and the crystal pulsed with a surge of dark energy. The images of Tamis and Saga flickered and distorted, their forms seeming to weaken, their life force draining away. Damon knew he had to act, but he was outmatched, hopelessly outgunned by the power radiating from the shadowed figure. He needed a plan, a way to level the playing field. His gaze fell on the crystal, the source of the shadowed figure's power. Could he disrupt the ritual, sever the connection between the figure and the crystal, and free Tamis and Saga? It was a risky gambit, but time was running out. He had to try. Drawing on his will, Damon focused his energy, channeling it through his hands towards the crystal. As Damon poured his energy towards the crystal, a surge of power coursed through him. It was like nothing he had ever felt before, raw, primal, and exhilarating. The air around him crackled with energy. The runes etched into the walls flared to life. The shadowed figure turned towards Damon, its features contorting in rage.
You dare interfere?
But Damon held his ground. The shadowed figure gestured towards the crystal, and a wave of dark energy erupted from it, surging towards Damon. He braced himself, calling upon every ounce of his strength and willpower. The energy slammed into him, throwing him backwards. He landed hard, the air knocked from his lungs. Pain lanced through his body, but he couldn't give in. He had to break the shadowed figure's hold over the crystal. The grove itself seemed to be reacting to the clash of magic. The trees swayed violently, their branches thrashing. The runes on the walls flickered erratically. The very air crackled with raw power. Damon realized this was more than just a battle for freedom. This was a battle for the fate of the grove itself.
Damon?
A voice, strong and clear, cut through the chaos, echoing through the grove. Damon's heart surged with a mixture of relief and renewed determination. It was Tamis. She was awake, aware, and her voice, though strained, held a note of defiance.
Don't let him take our magic.
Saga's voice, weaker but no less determined, followed.
Fight him, Damon. We believe in you.
Their words, imbued with trust and a strength that belied their captivity, fueled Damon's resolve. He would not let them down. He would break their bonds, defeat the shadowed figure, and restore balance to the grove. Gathering his strength, Damon focused his will, channeling his magic with a precision he hadn't known he possessed. He reached out towards the crystal once more, this time not with brute force, but with a deep understanding of the grove's magic, its rhythms and flows. He could feel the grove responding to him, its ancient power surging through him, lending him strength. He was no longer just a mage channeling his own limited reserves of magic. He was a conduit, a vessel for the grove's power. As Damon's magic merged with the grove's, the crystal pulsed with blinding light. A wave of energy erupted, shattering the shadowed figure's hold over Tamis and Saga. The sisters cried out, their bonds dissolving into motes of light. The shadowed figure roared, its power waning. The runes dimmed, balance returning to the grove. Damon watched as the shadowed figure dissolved into nothingness. The crystal pulsed with a soft, warm light, bathing the chamber in an ethereal glow. Tamis and Saga, weak but free, stumbled towards Damon. He caught them, holding them close.
You did it, Damon. You saved us.
Damon smiled, exhaustion washing